I was sitting in a dust-covered tent halfway across the world when my marriage ended. 13 years. Closed, sealed, and delivered in a PDF attachment. My name's Alex Carter. I'm 42. Staff Sergeant with the 82nd Airborne. I'd been stationed in Kandahar for about 4 months when Rachel decided she was done waiting for me. I'll never forget that subject line. Let's be adults about this. 3 sentences. That's all it took. She had already filed the divorce papers. She had already emptied our joint account. She had already moved her new boyfriend, Mark Lewis, into our house back in Spokane. I read the email twice, then I closed my laptop. Took a long shower in the communal stall, got dressed for my shift, said nothing to anyone. That night, when I crawled back into my bunk, I opened my laptop again. Typed one word, understood, sent it, and shut it all down. Wilson, my bunkmate, noticed something was off. "You good, man?" he asked, eyes still on his book. "Yeah." I said, "Just some stuff back home." He nodded, and that was that. Military guys, they know when to leave things alone. The truth is, I wasn't surprised. 6 months before deployment, something had started to shift. Small things at first. Rachel stopped asking about my day, started working late at the dental office where she answered phones, started going to the gym 3 times a week, but never seemed to sweat. New clothes, new friends I never met, new passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her, didn't start checking her messages, didn't follow her around. That's not who I am, but I wasn't blind either. So I made some quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I secured all the important documents: birth certificate, marriage license, the deed to the house, stored them in a rental unit across town. Only my name was on the mortgage, thanks to the VA loan, something I'd earned the hard way. I moved a few valuables there too: my grandfather's watch, my mom's old silver set, things that mattered. I also opened a separate bank account, started diverting part of my pay there, not enough for Rachel to notice, but enough that I wouldn't be starting from scratch. If things went south, the night before I deployed, Rachel hugged me at the airport, said, "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a coworker, not a husband about to walk into a war zone. I should have known then, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. What Rachel didn't know was I had prepared for this moment, and what she didn't understand was I never start fights, but I damn sure know how to finish them. We met at a friend's barbecue back in 2010. I was home between tours, staying with my buddy Jason in Spokane. Rachel was finishing nursing school, but ended up taking an admin job at a dental office instead. "Less stress," she said. We got married 8 months later. Fast, but it felt right back then. Rachel used to say she was proud of my service, though she never really understood it. Her family wasn't military. Her dad was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist. She used to ask when I was going to get a real job. Never quite got that after 15 years. The Army wasn't just a job to me. It was who I was. In 2014, we bought our house. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, quiet street. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. My name was on the mortgage. But I added Rachel to the deed because that's what married people do. They share. When my dad passed away, a year after we married, and then my mom 3 years later, they left me a little inheritance. Not life-changing money, but enough to pay off our student loans. Give us some breathing room. 4 deployments later, I started noticing Rachel getting restless. Each time I came home, it was like she was playing a role she didn't believe in anymore. One night, she said it out loud. "I didn't sign up to be a military wife. I'm tired of being alone all the time." I understood. I really did, but the Army was the only place I ever felt like I truly belonged. In 2019, it got worse. Late nights, new friends, girls' trips, new clothes, new life. A life I wasn't a part of anymore. I suggested counseling. She brushed it off. "We're fine. Just a phase." I wanted to believe her, so I stayed quiet, trusted my gut, and made plans, just in case. 2 weeks after that email, while sitting in the mess hall, my phone buzzed. Another bank notification, another withdrawal, $88,500, 0 cents. Almost everything we had left. I put my fork down, opened the app, saw our joint account drained to almost nothing. $22.37 left. That's what I was worth to her. 22 damn dollars. Part 2. Loss in preparation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling of the tent, the heat sticking to my skin, my mind racing with everything Rachel had done. The money was gone. The house wasn't safe. My life, the one I thought I was building with her, was crumbling faster than I could catch it. I pulled out my laptop again, logged into our home security system. Rachel probably forgot I could still access it remotely. I clicked through the camera feeds, the driveway, the kitchen, the living room. And that's when I saw him, a stranger walking our dog, using my coffee mug, wearing my Seahawk sweatshirt, laughing in the kitchen I had renovated with my own hands during my last leave. Mark Lewis. He wasn't just crashing at my house. He was living there, living my life. Something inside me shifted, not rage, not heartbreak, something colder, sharper. I closed the laptop slowly, pulled out my phone, started making a list. Call Evan Mitchell, my old Army buddy turned lawyer. Check the VA loan terms. Secure my pension. Review the house documents. See if Rachel had tried anything slick. This wasn't about emotions anymore. This was a mission, and missions I know how to handle. The next morning at 500 before my shift, I sent an email to Evan, subject line, "Need legal help, discreet and urgent." His reply came less than an hour later. "Call me, secure line only." I found a corner of the base where the signal was strong enough. Dialed in. Evan picked up after 2 rings. I explained everything, every ugly piece. Rachel's email, the drained account, the guy in my house, the forged atmosphere I was starting to smell. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then he said, "Alex, you're going to have to move carefully, but trust me, we can nail this down." Those words, they didn't make it hurt less, but they gave me something to hold on to, a thread back to solid ground. Over the next few days, I pulled every piece together. I contacted the bank, played dumb, asked for a review of recent account activities. Turns out Rachel had been draining small amounts first, then bigger ones. The real bleeding had started the day after I deployed. She wasn't waiting, she was cashing out. I sat in the phone center for what felt like hours, staring at the transfer history, watching everything we built evaporate, line by line. Murphy from my unit sat next to me, nudged me with his elbow. "Bad news?" he asked. "Nah, just account stuff," I lied. Because, what else could I say? That my wife turned our marriage into a garage sale while I was dodging mortars? That night back at my bunk, Wilson cornered me again. "You look like you seen a ghost, brother." I told him the basics. My wife had emptied our accounts, moved her boyfriend into my house, and sent me divorce papers while I was still lacing up my boots in the desert. Wilson didn't say anything like, "Sorry, man," or "You'll find someone else." No, he just looked at me dead in the eye and asked, "What's your plan?" And that's why I trusted him. Because he understood, out here, plans were life. Over the next 2 weeks, every free minute I had, I worked the problem. I talked to Evan about refinancing, tricks Rachel might have pulled. He warned me about signature forgeries, VA loans, how much risk there was if she tried to tamper with anything. I checked the deed history remotely, requested copies of every document filed against the house since I left. I reviewed my pension account, verified security settings, passwords, two-step verifications, because if Rachel was this bold, nothing was off the table. One night, maybe 3 weeks after her email, I sat in the chow hall staring at a plate of cold food. The other guys were laughing, FaceTiming their wives, their kids, normal life still happening all around me. I sat there silent, clutching my fork so hard my knuckles turned white, realizing my whole world had collapsed and no one around me even knew. I logged back into the security cameras, kept watching. Most nights it was the same. Mark on my couch, Rachel scrolling her phone, acting like none of it mattered. But sometimes I caught little things. Mark talking on the phone in the backyard, pacing, Rachel whispering and looking over her shoulder, little signs that they were planning something more, something I hadn't seen yet. That's when I decided if they were going to make a move, I'd be ready. No anger, no warnings, just preparation. I moved all my critical files to encrypted drives. I kept every email, every transaction, screenshot, every video clip from the cameras. I documented everything like it was evidence, because in a way, it was. Then, one night, the camera caught Rachel and Mark arguing in the driveway, loud enough I could hear bits even through the crackly audio. "We need to sell it before he comes back," Rachel said. "You promised." Mark was waving his arms. "It's complicated. VA loans are tricky. His name's on everything." Rachel turned and kicked the tire of Mark's truck so hard she almost fell. He caught her, and they both started laughing. That was it, the last piece of the puzzle. They weren't just moving on. They were plotting to strip me of everything. The house, the money, the life I'd bled for. I sat there in that little chair in Kandahar, heart pounding, mouth dry, realizing I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was fighting for my future. I emailed Evan right after that, updated him. He replied almost immediately, "Start the clock. Time to move." 2 months later, I stepped off a plane onto American soil. I didn't call Rachel, didn't text, didn't warn her. I just checked into a cheap motel downtown under a different name. The plan was simple. Watch, listen, wait for her to trip over her own lies. Evan met me the next morning at a diner outside Spokane. He slid a thick folder across the table. "Everything we discussed," he said. "House deeds, bank statements, refinance documents," and then he pulled out something separate, a refinance application, with my signature on it, except it wasn't my signature. Not really. They had tried to copy it, but the middle initial was wrong. The stroke was wrong. It was sloppy. "Rachel did this," I said quietly. Evan just nodded. 3 months ago, she pulled out $330,000, 0 cents in equity from your house. I sat back hard. $330, 0 cents, gone, and she had forged my name to do it. "It gets better," Evan said, flipping another page. She listed Mark as a co-applicant. Mark Lewis, the guy wearing my sweatshirt, the guy walking my dog, was now part owner of my house. My stomach twisted, and it wasn't over yet. Evan dug deeper, found more. Mark had a record, 2 DEIs, a fraud charge back in 2019, the kind of guy Rachel had brought into my home. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was something else, sharper, colder. I asked Evan what my options were. He leaned forward. "First thing, freeze everything you can. Second, you need to decide, do you want revenge or do you want justice?" Evan smiled and come up with no doubt where she worked. "I want what's mine, and I want her to understand consequences." Evan smiled grimly. "Good, because we're going to bury them in their own mess." First the stop, the bank. I walked into the branch where the refinance had been processed, sat down with the loan officer, showed him my military ID, my real driver's license, my authentic signature. His face drained of color as he compared it to the forged paperwork. "I'll need to report this immediately," he stammered. "I understand," I said. "I've already filed a police report." By the time I walked out, The refinance funds were frozen. The fraud alert triggered. Rachel's castle was already starting to crack. That night, my phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. "Who have you been talking to at the bank? Mark says someone was asking questions." I stared at the message for a long time. Didn't reply. The next morning, I filed paperwork at the county clerk's office contesting the refinance. Formal notice went into the system. No sale, no transfer, no changes to the property without my direct consent. It was like laying mines around everything they thought they had stolen. 2 days later, Rachel called. Her voice filled my voicemail, frantic. "Alex, we need to talk. The bank is calling about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults." Like adults? The same phrase she used when she destroyed our life. Over email? I didn't answer. Meanwhile, Evan kept digging, and what he found blew everything wide open. Mark had been driving my truck, the one still registered in my name, and he got pulled over. Suspended license, outstanding warrants. The police impounded the truck, and inside they found prescription pads, stolen from the dental office where Rachel worked. Evan called me that night. "Your ex-wife's boyfriend was caught with stolen medical documents." I just closed my eyes and let the words sink in. Rachel wasn't just leaving me. She was sinking deeper into something criminal, something bigger than just an affair. Evan told me the police had opened an investigation, and it was only getting started. The next day, I met with a bank fraud investigator. Thompson, short guy, coffee stain on his tie. He looked tired before we even sat down. "This happens more often than you'd think," he said, flipping through my documents. "Spouse deploys, other spouse sees an opportunity." He leaned in. "But your case, it's messier than most." He turned his screen toward me. "Transfers, lots of them errors, tens of thousands gone, and one name kept coming up. Greg Barnes. Not Mark Lewis, not Rachel Carter, but someone new." "Who the hell is Greg Barnes?" I asked. Thompson shrugged. "You should ask your lawyer." So I did. Evan ran the name through his databases. An hour later, he called back. "Greg Barnes is a real estate agent, specializes in quick cash sales, houses that need to disappear fast. And Greg wasn't just a random name. He had a history with Mark Lewis. They had closed 3 deals together in the last 2 years, each one involving a woman going through divorce, each one ending with the house sold for pennies on the dollar and Mark walking away with a cut. I sat there on the edge of my motel bed, breathing hard. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a scam, organized, repeated, targeting people like me, soldiers who couldn't fight back because we were thousands of miles away. "This goes beyond just Rachel," Evan said carefully. "It's a pattern, and if we play this right, it could bring the whole thing down." I nodded. "What do we do next?" Evan's voice was cold, professional. "We call the FBI." Part 4. The counterattack. The next morning, I met Evan at a parking lot 2 blocks from the FBI field office. He handed me a coffee. Black, no sugar. "You ready for this?" he asked. I nodded. We walked in together. No drama, no hesitation. Just 2 men carrying the weight of betrayal on their backs. Agent Patel and Agent Donovan met us in a small gray conference room, both of them calm, efficient, the kind of people who had seen worse things than this. They took copies of every document we brought, listened while I walked them through everything: the forged refinance, the stolen money, the hidden transactions, the security camera footage, the fake signatures, the scheme. Rachel, Mark, Greg Barnes. When I finished, Agent Patel leaned back in her chair, folded her hands. "This isn't just a domestic issue anymore. This is organized real estate fraud, identity theft, conspiracy against a federally backed loan." Her words hung heavy in the room. I just nodded, because deep down, I already knew. They asked more questions, More details, dates, times, anything I could remember. When we finished, Patil slid her card across the table. Stay reachable. Don't confront them, let us handle it. Understood, I said quietly, because this wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about strategy. That night, I drove past my old house, parking a few blocks away where the street light was broken. Mark's truck was in the driveway. Rachel's car, too. Normal life, like nothing was wrong. But inside the walls were crumbling. And they didn't even know it yet. The next morning, Rachel texted me. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverfront Park. I showed the text to Evan over breakfast. He shook his head. Don't meet her. She's fishing. I know, I said, but I still wanted to see what she would do. So we waited, sitting in Evan's car, parked near my old house at exactly 9:30 a.m. Rachel pulled out, headed toward the park. 20 minutes later, another car pulled up. Real estate agent logo on the side, Greg Barnes. And out of the house came Mark Lewis. They shook hands, laughed, walked inside together. Evan and I just watched. Silent, patient. I pulled out my phone, opened the security app. Last year before deployment, I had upgraded all the cameras to cloud storage, interior and exterior. I tapped into the feed. There they were. Inside my living room, Greg snapping photos, Mark pointing around like he owned the place. I turned up the audio. Should list by end of the week, Greg said. I've got a cash buyer already interested. How much? Mark asked. List at $470.00. Settle at $420.00. Everybody wins. What about the husband? Mark chuckled. Rachel says he's causing trouble. Greg waved him off. Military guys bark a lot, but they're tied up, deployments, paperwork, they'll settle. I didn't say anything, didn't move, just recorded the feed, forwarded the live link straight to Agent Patel. Subject line, happening now. 30 minutes later, FBI vehicles surrounded the house, black SUVs rolling in like a thunderstorm, agents in jackets piling out, guns drawn. Mark was let out first, hands behind his head. Greg, a minute later, looking like the sky had just fallen on him. From where I sat down the street, I could see Rachel step onto the lawn, her hands covering her mouth, watching as everything she thought she controlled collapsed in front of her. My phone buzzed. Agent Patel. We have them on tape discussing the fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted sale of property under false pretense. We'll need a formal statement from you. Of course, I said, my voice steady, calm, colder than it had ever been. I watched as they carried boxes of evidence out of my house. My house, the one I built, the one I bled for, now finally being pulled back from the edge. Patel's voice softened a little. Your wife. She just arrived. She's distressed. I looked at Rachel, standing there, shell-shocked, broken. 13 years together, good years once, before whatever this had become. What happens to her? I asked. Patel hesitated. That depends on what she knew and on what you want. I didn't answer right away. I watched Rachel standing there, the weight of everything finally catching up to her. And for the first time, I realized I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. I just felt empty. I just want what's right, I said finally, my voice barely a whisper. The federal case moved faster than anyone expected. Mark flipped first, offered up everything to cut a deal. Greg wasn't far behind. Documents poured in, proof of other families targeted the same way, same playbook, same betrayal. And Rachel insisted she hadn't known about the bigger scheme, that Mark had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing. She said she thought the refinance was normal, that the money was for both of us. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. I stopped caring. In the end, she agreed to a full settlement. restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house, forfeiture of any right to my military pension, a signed confession admitting to forging my signature, and in exchange, I didn't press charges. The divorce finalized 6 months after that first email in Kandahar. No fault. Clean break. Just paperwork and silence. Part 5. Closing the past, rebuilding a life. The day the final divorce papers came through, I sat alone on the porch of my rented apartment, watching the sunset bleed across the sky. My phone buzzed. It was Agent Patel. Just thought you'd want to know. Mark Lewis was sentenced today. 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Greg Barnes got 12. I thanked her, not because it changed anything, but because it meant the system actually worked this time. She paused. There's something else. Because of your case, we found evidence they pulled this scam on 11 other military families. Those families might get their money back because of you. I sat there a long time after we hung up, letting the words settle, thinking about those men, out there risking everything, while their lives back home were gutted by people they trusted. I hadn't planned to be the one to bring them down. I just wanted my life back. But sometimes life has bigger plans than you do. A few days later, my phone buzzed again. A message from Rachel. I never meant for things to end this way. I stared at it for a while, then locked my phone and set it face down. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Every floorboard, every wall whispered betrayal. I used the money to buy a small cabin outside of Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms, 10 acres of land, a creek running behind it. No neighbors for miles. Just trees and sky and silence. I took early retirement from the Army. 20 years was enough. I'd given enough. I bought a German Shepherd, named him Scout. Started doing small carpentry projects for locals, nothing fancy. Building shelves, fixing porches, anything to keep my hands busy. The military pension covered the rest. Some days, the silence felt heavy, thicker than the forest around me, but most days, it felt like peace. I built things with my hands, chopped wood, walked Scout along the trails behind the creek, let the earth heal parts of me that no lawyer, no settlement ever could. Sometimes I thought about Rachel, wondered where she ended up. Evan mentioned he heard she moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at another dental office, starting over, maybe learning from her mistakes, maybe not. I didn't hate her anymore. Truth be told, I didn't feel much of anything toward her at all. One evening, I got a letter, handwritten, from a woman in Fort Worth. Her husband was in the Navy, deployed, when Mark and Greg had tried to run their scam on her. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to walk away. I read it twice, then pinned it to my refrigerator with an old Army coin. Some days, when the memories got sharp or the nights got too long, I would stand there, looking at that letter, remembering that something good had come out of all the wreckage. Last I heard, Mark and Greg were still sitting in prison, serving their time. Rachel had faded out of my life like a bad dream you don't talk about, not because it hurts, but because it just doesn't matter anymore. And for me, I was finding my way forward, one quiet step at a time, building something new, something no one could forge, steal, or destroy. Something that was mine, and mine alone. Looking back, this whole experience taught me one thing: trust your instincts. Protect what matters before it's too late. Sometimes the people you think will stand beside you forever are the ones who tear you down the fastest. But no matter how much you lose, you can still rebuild. Stronger, wiser, and free. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to watch them betray you when you least expected? What would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have fought back, or walked away quietly? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for staying with me through this story. It wasn't easy to relive it, but sharing it means a lot. If you found something meaningful here, something that resonates with your own journey, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be sharing more real stories like this, stories of survival, resilience, and finding your way forward, one step at a time. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss the next chapter. Your support keeps these stories alive and keeps this small community growing. Thank you for being here.